So it's my great pleasure to welcome Leland Holgate, the what I call the Willful warrior guru. He doesn't know this, but every morning I wake up and he goes straight on in my headphones, and I'm straight into my breath work. So Leland is a combat veteran. He's studying neuroscience and psychology. Wow, I'm just hats off to you guys. And challenges in his life led him down the path of yoga, breathwork, and meditation. So, this is what we're here to talk about, some of those challenges. And he has healed himself of a neck injury that left him paralyzed from the waist down. He's overcome PTSD, addiction, and so much more using the power of breath and meditation. So I want to actually dive into your story around having cancer, which you had twice. This guy's
Uh,
like,
once. Yeah, I had it once. Yeah.
you had it once. All
Thankfully.
right.
I had a scare. I had a scare. You probably heard of my scare.
Okay.
Thankfully, that one came back where I was not morbid. I was pre-morbid, so it was not active cancer. Thank God.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But then later on,
Yeah. So there was the diagnosis. It was unfortunately a month after my father died from suicide. That was when I got the diagnosis. So it was like the left and the right, like.
so that's interesting because a lot of people do say that they have a diagnosis after a massive trauma, and I hear a lot around grief actually.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
do you connect those?
I do, especially when I tune into my own story, right? And that's part of like, I so wish I was on the path I'm on now then, just because I would have at least been in that research mindset, like, ooh, I gotta like connect these dots for myself. But still, when I think about it and I read other people's stories, qualitatively, it fits whenever you look at it. Many people say the same thing, like, I lost my mother and then all of a sudden was diagnosed with breast cancer or something, and then same thing for me, losing my father and then diagnosed with colon cancer stage 2. Like, I know obviously it had been building before then. There had been plenty of things that I had done wrong, from the military, drinking, drugs, and all these other things. But yeah, it was like that was the catalyzing moment, right? Where I finally figured, like, I got to go in and get checked. This is not right.
Yeah, yeah. And in my book I called it cancer as an initiation. I mean, do you relate to that as kind of seeing
I
these things as
do.
initiations?
It's so funny because so many people stare at me like I have a horn growing out of the middle of my forehead when I say one of the best things to ever happen to me was cancer.
And why is that?
Yeah.
What did it
So
do?
made me shift my diet, made me recognize there was putrefied pieces of myself that I was not paying attention to. And no matter which way I sliced it, I had put myself in that position. I could be woe is me about it, or I could realize horrible diet, just sedentary lifestyle, everything else from stress to losing my father and all these other things that had happened. It made sense in my book, right? You could either let it really hit you, or you could let it hit you right where it needs to hit you in the thinker, where you're like, okay, there's something I can do about this. If I have found my way into it, I can find my way out of it. So yeah, it's that immediate shift. Like, what can I change in my food? What can I digest mentally that I'm not doing now? What can I do meditation and breath work wise? Where can I make shifts in my life? Because obviously my body is screaming at me right now that it needs attention.
Yeah. And so did that kick in straight away for you?
It took a good couple of weeks. I'll be honest and say that I had probably 3 weeks of self-loathing and bawling my eyes out and crying and suicidal ideations and all the things that many of us that have experienced the big C word have dealt with. So 3 weeks. And then afterwards, it was just like when my neck woke up from deciding I was going to heal from quadriplegia. in that same way, just something in that third week clicked, and I wiped my eyes dry and said, why am I whining about this? Do something about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And so did you, because I know things like the medical system's slightly different in the US than it is in the UK. Did you do anything with the medical system, or did you just go natural all the way?
I went natural all the way, especially because I was dealing with the VA and they scared the crap out of me. I mean, they're already at stage 2. They're talking about J turns and cutting out 6 feet of your colon and chemo and radiation. And I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? I'm 36 years old. I'm not even that old. What's happening right now?
Yeah.
So yeah, that scared me onto the straight and narrow. Immediately went vegan, and not just went vegan, but also massively included sodium bicarbonate and turmeric and all of these other things that I could include into my diet after just seriously getting into the research on things.
Yeah, yeah. And that was going to be my next question, because, people always say to me, well, what did you do? I want to copy what you did. And of course, everybody's body is different. So you
Yeah.
have to find your own way, and you have to
Yeah.
find your own diet. And there's so many diets out there, and food is a
Totally.
massive trigger for so many people. It's like, no, you mean I have to give up dairy? I have to give up sugar? And oh,
Yeah.
surely I can just have a little bit. And this is where I say to people, well, cancer's a time to be extreme. There's a time for
Yeah.
balance and there's a time for extreme.
Right.
So,
Right.
what would be your top health recommendations for anyone, whether they're dealing with a diagnosis or not? There's certain
Yeah.
things that we can all go, everyone needs to do this.
Sure, sure. Yeah. This is an epic question because when I look at it and being in the research so much, people in our society, especially in Western culture, have to realize that even if you're not dealing with cancer right now, your body is most likely pre-morbid because of the things you eat, the air that we breathe, the cities we live in, the stresses that we deal with. It's just a natural part of our Western culture, right? We're very different than the Eastern cultures in the way that we connect with food and everything else. So knowing that, you can take steps now before you get the big C diagnosis, knowing that there are 2 non-negotiables for me moving forward, especially if you get the cancer diagnosis. Were you to get the cancer diagnosis, or you're having issues right now that you're concerned about, that the 2 non-negotiables for me are dairy and sugar. You have to, just like you said, you have to go extreme. There is no, I'm going to play the middle and be a little mushy about this and maybe have a little sugar, whatever else. None of that can happen. Like, if there's one thing that cancer thrives off of more than anything, it's glucose, it's sugar. So you have to really manage the levels of that. And then, of course, dairy, because the body, I'm sorry, is not meant to induce or intake bovine lactate. It has 8 times the amount of protein that our body can actually produce, or, actually take through the process. So
Yeah.
those 2 things, non-negotiable, like you said, got to go extreme, especially if you get the diagnosis. Do you want to live and heal, or do you want to just maintain and possibly make it through this?
Yeah, totally. And I've always had a thing with dairy, like an on-off love relationship, but also I've always thought, how are we going to grow up if we still take dairy? We're not babies. We don't need it. Maybe as a humanity, we might actually grow up if we ditch the dairy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny that, and this, of course, hits, like you said, it's a big trigger for a lot of people, right? Because what they don't realize is everything they've heard on TV and even from their doctors is sponsored by the FDA, the American Cancer Association, the Medical Association, all of these places that have sold us the lie that milk is the highest form and best form of vitamin D. It's not. It's absolutely not. In fact, what we've noticed per the research is that it actually saps your bones of calcium and vital vitamin D, not to mention the things that it does to your gut and the mucus buildup inside of your lungs and all these other things that dairy does. I'm sorry, we're not meant to intake it. Like you said, as a baby, you can definitely your body can internalize it because you're just pumping through calories like a madman as a baby. You're growing fast. So, of course, a baby could take that. But even then, it's like, why dwarf your baby's development? Why do that to our? And then same thing in the childhood age, right? Why dwarf your childhood if with dairy? Like, there's so many other options out there, I find, that are tastier, like oat milk anyways, or cashew milk.
Yeah.
Super tasty, just as thick
Yeah.
and way better for you. Oh my God.
That's it. It just takes a little bit of research, doesn't it? A bit of looking
It
somewhere
does.
else, but,
It does.
whatever it is that, you like, like the creaminess or something. I mean, for me,
Yeah,
it was the butter, and actually what I realized, it was the salt.
exactly. It
And
is.
that was the other thing that I grew up in that era of like, salt's bad for you. Well, yeah, crappy salt is bad for you, but actually
Sure,
we
sure.
need good salt.
Exactly.
So just
Yeah, yeah.
put a little bit of Celtic salt on your food and you're fine.
Celtic is the best. Second to that, Himalayan, but yeah, Celtic, absolute best salt out there. Love
I love this guy.
it.
So yeah, the sugar and the dairy, and of
Yep.
course, the breath work comes in with that beautiful alkalizing effect that it has on the body.
Yes.
So, for me, I mean, I must admit, I hadn't discovered you back then. So I was doing Wim Hof, and it was just like whatever I could get my hands on. I'd been doing yoga since I was 17, so I had all the pranayama and those techniques. But as an addict, I really liked the feeling that the Wim Hof, or the really strong breath
Yeah.
work.
The woo.
Yeah, we all love a bit of that. So the fact that I'm oxygenating my body and just kind of expanding my lung, I realized that I didn't breathe properly.
Yeah.
Before I started doing breath work, I had a really shallow breath, which I thought was good from years of doing yoga and meditation. It's like I barely breathe. Oh my God.
This is what I try to connect with a lot of my colleagues as well, that are all 500-hour, if not more, yoga instructors and teacher trainers like myself. But what I've gotten them to, some of them like yourself have recognized, it's like, man, they didn't teach us how to do this from a young age, like the core system inside of our body that runs absolute everything. So disconnected from it, even as a yoga teacher. There's so many things that we just don't pay attention to inside of the breathing apparatus, or how we breathe. And when you make those little shifts, like you've noticed, it is the world, the universe opens up to you. You're like, oh my God, I wasn't even using this thing.
And it's free. And it's
It
free.
is. Yeah, it's free, readily available, given to you the moment you enter this 3D version of yourself.
Yeah, I know. Amazing. Amazing. So, you touched on the fact that it took you 3 weeks to kind of, get the big C word and work your way through what you're going to do. And, I had the same thing where they just want to cut and burn. It's like, seems
Yeah.
to be the answer to everything. We'll just cut you open, then we'll
Yeah.
give you the chemo radiation, and I was like, no, 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 I don't want to do that. Um, and I wonder, we touched on also the fact that your dad had committed suicide. And for me, as a woman, I find it really interesting where we get cancer in our bodies. And for a guy, you getting colon cancer. I mean, did you kind of look at that in a kind of philosophical way of like where it was in your body, what was going on for you, the macrocosm and the microcosm, even maybe what was going on in your outer world?
Sure, absolutely. Because I mean, when you look at it, especially from either the yoga sense or just a neuroendocrine sense, these bottom three, the root, the sacral, and the solar plexus, all three of them are connected to fear of letting go, loss, deep grief from a bad childhood, all of these other things. So when I started really tuning into that, I realized, like, yeah, no wonder you got it. Most men don't find out they have it until in their 50s, right? And here I am, 36 years old. Of course, I've been through the 80,000 vaccinations the military gave us, including anthrax and everything else from my childhood. But then I took all the other things into account as well and recognized, wow, yeah, when you look at why I was a drug addict and alcoholic and everything else, I had a fear of letting go. I didn't want to deal with my childhood. I had extreme loss in my life and all these things. So all the dots connected easily, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I remember working with a homeopath, and one of the things he dropped in was that ever since leaving home, I'd never had a secure housing. So it's
Right.
like that, there's that base chakra security, and it was like, wow,
Exactly.
never thought about that. And it was like, oh, there's another layer of healing to do.
Yep.
Okay, here we go. So, and what about sort of relating it with the divine masculine kind of side of things? I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
the father line, the loss of your dad. I don't know if you have sons. There's that whole kind of lineage of, what we're passing on and what we've taken from our ancestors. Did that come in for you?
It did. It did. Yeah. Because when I pay attention to it, I was the chain breaker, right? All the way from my great grandpa. I remember my grandpa's stories of him being beaten and broken. And then, of course, I remember my dad's stories. And then I have my own stories. And I got to be the one that stopped that. My son didn't get that, thank God. So, but since I was the chain breaker, that energy sat at the end of my line. It was now my responsibility. I chose that, of course, but it was my responsibility, or whatever soul contract that I decided to sign, that I was going to take care of this. And I took that that was obviously in there as well. There's a lot genetically that will predispose you to these things, right? I'm especially studying epigenetics on top of the neuroscience and psychology. I don't look at things as predetermined. That's impossible. We can't do that. Especially geneticists will tell you that's wrong. Nothing is predetermined. You're predisposed. So this predisposition is already built in, like you said, based on your bloodline, based on your ancestors. What have they dealt with? 7 generations it takes for certain bad characteristics, energies, mental, physiological effects, almost 7 generations for those things to leave completely. So you're always dealing with it, especially if you're the chain breaker.
Yeah, yeah. And absolutely. I mean, when I first heard your story, I could see that in you. You've had so much to deal with in your life, and I could say the same thing. And I was told by a psychic when I was in my early 20s, you're going to break the patterns of your family. And I was like, going, why me? I'm the only one that's had children in my family. So, of course, I have to, because,
Right.
I have to do it for my kids. And I love the fact that, my eldest kids are sober and clean. It's like that has passed down. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, what was the biggest thing that helped you stay out of fear? I mean, did you have any scans and things like that while you were doing your natural healing?
I did one heat scan in the beginning, and after that I let it go, because what I recognized was I was waiting for the results. And I recognized immediately stress level went up. The cramping got a little worse during those days that I was waiting, and that was when I decided, that's it, no more. Just trust yourself, trust the universe, do the work you need to do, and shift this. So that was the last one I got. I didn't get any other scans until the end. I went back in for, CBC, all of that good stuff. But I also didn't have to get a scan at the end, which it's a little TMI, but I'll tell you why here in a minute if you want to know.
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
I passed my tumor.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I actually had my tumor it's a 1.93 centimeter tumor inside of my sigmoid colon, right? Which is the last piece of the colon before it hits rectum to anus. So yeah, it was right there. It was right there in the inner wall. And in the very end stages, I had this, it was just a release. It was like a pop had happened, and I had to go to the bathroom. It just felt like I had a horrible case of diarrhea. And when I sat down and used the restroom, of course, a massive amount of blood. So, of course, for the moment, I'm like, oh, crap. Okay, I'm going to have to go get checked because something's going on here. I was doing good. I was doing so good. Everything felt good. The swelling was down in my belly. The cramping had stopped, all these other things. And then that had come out. And when I actually investigated, I noticed a very small sac sitting inside of the blood. And when TMI, this is where the TMI comes in, I had to, of course, extravate. I had to there was no way I was letting that get flushed down. I was like, I'm checking this thing out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
heard a story years ago of a guy who he had throat cancer and he fasted for 3 months and coughed his tumor up.
It's amazing. I mean, and you can't help. There's this human curiosity when something like that happens where you're like, oh my God.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, it was
I
interesting.
had surgery and I asked to get my ovaries back so that I could bury them. I was just like, I don't know what the hospitals do with these things. I want I want them and I want to bury them. And it was, yeah, it was quite weird when you kind of
Did you
see.
get to do it though?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Good, good, good. Awesome, awesome. Good. I feel like there's energetically something there. There really is.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Kind of reclaiming that part of myself and
Right.
actually doing the work with Dr. Joe and kind of all the visualization, everything. I was like, maybe they regrew. Maybe that miracle happened. Maybe I regrew them. I don't know. Because like you, I mean, I haven't gone back for scans. I just felt that real like I'm done. You know, that it
See?
was really clear,
Good.
like I'm done. This isn't coming back. Because I think there's another fear of like, keep going back and getting checked all the time.
Right.
So why do that? And also, of course, all
Good.
these scans and things they do are cancer causing. So
Yeah, yeah. Most of them now that are out there, it's like you're running radiation through me just to see if I have something that radiation causes.
crazy, isn't it? And
Oh, yeah.
and for the people who, make that choice of like going into the system and like you were saying, you have a scan and then you're terrified of what the
Yeah.
results are going to
Yeah. Now
be.
for the next 2 days, what else am I thinking of?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the UK, we can be waiting 2 weeks for those results.
Oh
And
God.
like when I do some mentoring with people, I just go, you know what, just use those 2 weeks to be in the magic because
Yeah.
it might be good and it might be bad, but there's nothing you can do about it. So
Exactly.
be in
Exactly.
the magic.
There's only something you can do about right now. So I was the exact same way that you were. That's why I was like, I'm done. I've already decided I'm done. Why do I need to go back?
Yeah. Yeah.
I got CBCs, but that's easy. They can tell me the next day, like, yeah, red blood cell, white blood cell counts good. Your vitamin levels are good. Phytonutrients are looking great. And I knew it. I mean, when I had got that news, I was like, don't need scans. I'm good.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So what would you say was the biggest anchor that got you through? I mean, family, community, support,
Um,
meditation.
support was somewhat there. I did the selfish thing. I cut off my family because while I love them, and they know this as well, this is something I even tell them. While I love them, they have the ability to stress me the hell out because they're not exactly on the same level as us, right? They're not mindful of their mind. They don't meditate on a regular basis. So not looking down on them. It's just I recognized in that moment, like I can't hang out with you guys if I'm going to be stress free. I love you. So I just kind of cut a lot of people off because there were still some not savory folks that were in my life at that point in time. I was still making shifts and changes, just post addiction and cleaning up. So just kind of went off on my own, which was actually very soothing. It became not isolation, it became solitude. And I turned my solitude into my palace of love for myself. And it was just meditation and breath work. So those two are probably the biggest anchors for me, especially breath work. The moment I even had a small doubt start to digest, oh, I wonder if I'm there's no wondering. You're doing everything. You're fine. And then I would start to breathe, and then I'd go back into meditation. I was doing the permanent intermittent fast for the whole almost 19 months until I got my remission. And it was just staying out of the way of the body, loving myself, fueling the body with a massive amount of water, making sure my electrolytes were good, all the things that I added in my cancer protocol that I took on, and then just breathe and meditate, man. Love the shit out of yourself, and
Yeah.
this thing's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So that for me is like number one, self-love, isn't it? It's like
Yeah,
if you're gonna
yeah,
get well, you have to prioritize yourself. And for a lot of people, it's that realization that they help everyone else, but they're the bottom of the
exactly.
pile. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I get to go to the top of the pile. I'm number one.
Yes, yes, which is so key. And it's, one of the biggest things too that I can tell everybody out there is The flip-flop is natural. It's going to happen. You'll question yourself and all these other things. But if you can just stick to the breath, slow yourself down, and recognize that what you're doing is important for you, then all of it kind of makes sense and it settles in, right? It's one of the biggest things I knew I had to solve was the constant external looking for that love that I needed for self. So I just needed to emanate it and be it. Because the more I kept searching for it on the outside, the more I kept looking for it or giving it away to others, the less I would get it and the less I would spend in that. So it's one of those, it's like placing an order with a waiter. And as he's walking away or she's walking away, you're like, oh, no, I'm changing my mind. There can be no waffling about this. It's just, I know what I want to accomplish and I'm going to love the hell out of myself the entire time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, my last question was going to be what's the biggest gift of cancer? And I think could be it, couldn't it? Self-love.
It is. Yeah, it is. It is the biggest red flag you will ever get that will tell you, listen, no one's to blame, but you need to pay attention to something and you need to love the hell out of yourself right now.
Yes. Beautiful. Thank you so much. So I did ask if you would do a little 5-minute breath blast or whatever works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go ahead and get a little sound on there. You want to give me sharing capability? I'll just put some low sound in the background.
Yeah.
Make it nice and serene.
How do I give you sharing?
If you just click on those 3 dots next to my name, you can make me co-host and that takes care of it.
Oh yeah, Meg. There we go.
Sweet. Perfect. Okay. Let me pull this thing close. Can you hear me okay? Everything's coming through okay?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right. Throw this on. Share. Oh, that was supposed to just do audio. I'll get my digital life together. 1 second. Advanced computer audio. There we are. Okay. So just let me know if you can hear this. Is that coming through okay?
Yeah, it's quiet.
Quiet? Is it too quiet?
Hello? Yeah.
How about that? Can you hear it now? Perfect. Okay. So settle in. Sit back in your chair. Let your hands rest on your knee. You can soften or close your eyes. Just focus on your heart. Imagine your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area. Breathing a little deeper and a little slower than usual. Inhale for 5 seconds and exhale for 5 seconds. Keep the breath even on the inhale and exhale. Set a meaningful intent to anchor in a feeling of inner ease, stillness. Notice the shift. And give yourself permission to breathe with sound and power, to move into this round, focusing on you and the love that you feel for self. Breathing in and out through the nose. Breathe in all the way to the top, all the way up and hold, all the way up and hold. Hold the breath. Let your shoulders fall. And you can follow me at the beginning. Exhale all the way out. Breathe with that sound and power. Of keeping the breath even on the inhale and exhale. From the belly, chest, and up. No pauses in between the inhale and exhale. Keep the breath continual and notice the shift and change within the body. The tingles and tension, all normal. Continue to breathe. You're almost there. Creating that alkaline environment within with every breath. Shifting the hormonal structure to happy and relief and relax with every breath. You're almost there. And now slowly breathe in, fill up all the way up. Hold the breath. Wallow into your belly. Slight pressure in the belly. And let go of everything else. Welcome home. Slowly start to exhale. Feel that wave as it moves throughout the forehead and jaw, the neck and shoulder, your arms and hands. Refreshing, revitalizing. It moves into your abdomen and chest, your hips and legs. Then to your feet and toes. One more time, breathing in through the nose and a sigh through the mouth this time. Breathe in all the way to the top and hold, all the way up and hold. Let your shoulders fall. Let that energy sink into your heart. In through the nose and a sigh through the mouth. Exhale all the way. Breathe with that sound. Keeping on the inhale and the sigh. Don't be afraid to make sound vibrating through the entire nervous system. Vagal toning and releasing stress with every breath. You're almost there. What you're feeling is normal. The body activating processes and systems within, creating new compounds and chemicals, shifting the internal and external state. Continue to breathe. You're almost there. Now fill up all the way. Fill up all the way and hold. Wallow into your belly. Let your shoulders fall. Release your mind. journey to the center of you, the center of the universe. When you're ready, you slowly start to exhale. Release all tension. Think. Settle. Surrender. The power of the universe within you. Remember all that you feel. Remember all that you've seen and heard. Bring that back to a refreshed and revitalized body and mind. Wiggle your fingers. Wiggle your toes. Slowly come back to the room.
In the bliss.
You look a little zenned out there.
The music too. The music's just so beautiful. It just like, whew.
Thank you. That's Ilka de Gast, actually. Some have probably heard that at Dr. Joe's retreats. She is an amazing composer and is working with us now as well.
Oh, amazing, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not just the breath work, but you know, the music. And when I've played some of your stuff in my circles, and you know, some of them are like breathing, and we're like, way, this is like party.
I love it. I
All
love
of
it.
it works, doesn't it, to lift your emotions, and that's what it's about. So like that's how we heal, by feeling good, you know. And it's like
Exactly.
whatever we can do to help us feel good: music, breathing, yoga, meditation, nature, juicing, water, all of it.
All of the above. Yes.
Thank you so much, Leland. Thank you so much for your time. And
You're so welcome.
yeah, I look forward to whatever you're doing now. Have you got anything imminent that's coming up that people can check out?
Yeah, we've actually now I have what's called our healing breathwork fundamentals, and it's a bit long. It's something you can share, or I'll share the link with you. And it's essentially, people can think of that as my progressive and intensive. It's
Right.
the basics and the fundamentals. It's a self-paced course, exactly like the progressive. You watch it at your pace. But it really tunes you in on some of the nerdy stuff, like the science of what's happening in the body, breath work specifically, certain new techniques that are now coming out in some of these new practices. And then there's 5 new practices inside of that program as well. Well, 6 actually, if you include the hour-long one that gets bonus given to you in the second week. So yeah, I'll share that with you.
Great, thank you. And having done Leland's fundamentals, I learned so much. I didn't know all of that about our nasal cavities, and you know, it's just like I'm an intuitive gal. If something feels good, I do it. But learning the science and the, you know, anatomy and physiology and all that kind of thing is fascinating. So thank you so much. And yeah, I look forward to whatever you're offering next. I'm hanging out for your breathwork training.
I love it. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'm super excited about that. We have the new program now, which is almost full. We have 8 more people that we're going to take into Awaken the Warrior Within, which is like the big brother to healing breathwork fundamentals. Super proud of that one. Full 12-week transformation. You'll have me side by side with you, and then the breath facilitator training by the end of the year. So super excited.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you
Yeah,
for your
you as
time.
well.
Lots of
Thank
love.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.